Welcome back to the shop, guys. It has already been over a month or so since I bought the C6, and in the few videos it's been in already, several people have asked me in the comments below, how much did you pay? My first instinct was to kind of say to myself, none of your business, but I quickly reminded myself that this is a Corvette YouTube channel focusing mainly on C5s and now C6s as well, so it's absolutely a fair question and one that deserves further discussion. So while the price that I paid for this C6 is simply a snapshot of what one idiot, me, paid for this pretty decent C6 on one particular day in history, I think it's more useful to walk through the process by which I used to value what C6s were going for within a 500-mile radius during that period of time. So let's dig into it. Oh, and I really don't want to hold anybody here against their will, so if you're simply here to find out how much I paid for the C6, fast forward to this part of the video and you'll find out. For the rest of you guys, thanks for sticking around. Let's keep going. As some of you might know, back on June 17th, I made the decision I wanted to add another Corvette to the garage, and so I went through multiple generations of the Corvette, kind of analyzing the pros and cons until I finally figured out I wanted to add a C6 to the shop. And from that point, I really just thought a little bit deeper about how I would be using the C6, and that told me what attributes it needed to possess to be on my target list. The first main condition really was to disqualify the 2005 C6s simply because of that 1-year crappy rear differential that doesn't like to hold up to abuse and boost in horsepower. Second, it had to be a manual transmission because real men drive stick shifts. No, I'm just kidding. I prefer a manual for this car because I have no intentions of driving it in heavy stop and go traffic. So that's just my preference. If you like an automatic transmission, that's totally cool too. I also limited my search to 3 or 4 of my favorite colors for the C6, and it had to be a fair deal. I wasn't necessarily out to get the deal of a century so I could brag to you, although if I had stumbled on the deal of the century, I would not have passed it up. Oh, and it also had to happen pretty soon because I wasn't going to spend 3 months searching every inch of the continental United States looking for that perfect C6, because by that time it would be winter, and what fun would that be? I also wanted to make sure that I leverage a couple of my strengths to my full advantage. Since I'm pretty decent at evaluating the mechanical condition of a Corvette, and since I do all of my work myself, I'm willing to go into those areas of the C6 market that others probably aren't, and that is the middle mileage area. So what exactly do I mean by middle mileage? Well, to me, anything lower than about 20,000 miles is ultra low mileage, borderline neglected. Any C6 between 25,000 and 75,000 is kind of that low mileage area where most people focus their search. And anything between about 75,000 and 140,000 is, in my mind, kind of that sweet spot middle mileage area that I like to focus. And anything around 140,000 miles or so on up is high mileage. Now guys, I realize that might be more miles than some of you are comfortable with, but think about it for just a second. Corvettes are typically maintained a heck of a lot better than your everyday daily driver. Additionally, LS engines, when properly maintained, routinely go 200, 250,000 or even more. So if you bought a C6 today with 100,000 miles on it, it's more likely than not it's going to last another 10 years or more at the rate at which most people drive these before it needs major engine surgery. The trick is finding one of the 80% of the C6s that was well maintained. So along those lines, guys, in my opinion, condition is absolutely the most important factor when looking at C6 Corvettes. Think about it for just a second. C6s are coming up on 20 years old. That is a long time. If this one happened to have lived in the Phoenix, Arizona area and it sat outside without being in a garage for a lot of that time, the paint would be cooked and the interior would be trashed. If it lived its life somewhere very close to the ocean, salt water takes its toll. There's going to be a ton of corrosion under the hood and the frame rails are going to be rusty. If for some goofy reason the previous owners felt like oil changes were optional and they failed to keep up with routine maintenance, a thorough and detailed inspection along with a comprehensive test drive will reveal that neglect. So all of these things kind of set the table for what comes next, and that is how to tell approximately, because there is no absolute number, how much the C6 Corvette that you happen to be looking at is worth. One way people try to find the answer is by posting the question on the Corvette forum or one of the various Facebook Corvette pages. Now, The only way this has any chance of success is if you write a paragraph providing very detailed and specific information about the C6 you're looking at. Plus, you also have to know which particular forum members actually do have their thumb on the pulse of the C6 market, and let's just say those who don't. Otherwise, trying to interpret the responses that you get may or may not provide any value. So while that method might work for some, here's how I prefer to start. First, in order to get a ballpark idea of what the particular C6 is worth, by using methods that at least utilize some objective data, I like to enter in the specific vehicle's information into kellybluebook.com and edmunds.com and see what numbers get spit out. All right, so going to the Kelley Blue Book website, go ahead and pick the year, the make, the model, and from there we'll check the coupe because that's what we have, put in the mileage, and then we'll go through and select the various equipment. Be sure when you get to the color, that actually affects the value more than you might think, so pick the correct color. And now we have to choose and be honest. This one's pretty close to excellent, but not quite. So I'll probably do a little interpolating between the two. And so private party, we've got 17.4 if it's in excellent condition, and we've got 15.8 if it's in very good condition. So I'm going to kind of interpolate between those two, and from Kelley Blue Book, I'm going to assign it a value of $16,800. All right, now we're on the Edmunds site, appraise my car, same ordeal, go ahead and put in all the dates and the information, the color. Here we've got a lot more specific equipment you can check, so make sure that's accurate, got the mileage, and then we've got a bunch of other stuff here about damage and water damage and, you know, shape of other things, modifications. So get all that filled out, and away we go. And with private party value, which is what I like to use, we've got to interpolate here as well. So looking at those two values, I'm going to go with 18,800 for Edmunds. So now that we have our data-driven numbers from both Kelley Blue Book and Edmunds.com, and since they're both reputable companies in my humble opinion, I like to add those numbers together and divide by 2. And when we do that, I get $17,800. So that is the amount that I need to pay for the C6 to get a fair deal, right? Well, not exactly. Like I said before, this is just going to be our ballpark price because at the end of the day, the only price that matters is the one that the buyer and the seller agree upon as the sales price for the C6. And even if you had two absolutely identical C6s, unless their price is set by dealer set pricing, you're always going to get different sales price depending on the personalities involved and each individual's circumstances. Oh, and one more thing, I do sometimes like to adjust when appropriate our value we got from that Kelley Edmunds exercise. When you have exterior mods that aren't engine related and they're modifications that add value to the vehicle that Kelley or Edmunds would really have no way of knowing about, I do like to adjust that price upwards for said mod. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go ahead and add $1,000 to the value of the vehicle for the Morimoto headlights because I think they're modern and tasteful and because they cost $1,500 new. And C6s of this age and mileage typically start to have pitted headlights that are kind of yellow and dingy, and that just brings down the look of the entire vehicle. I'm going to add another $1,000 for the Corsa exhaust because what can I say? Corsa is the gold standard with Corvette enthusiasts. They're made out of stainless steel, of course, and they cost around $2,000 new. Next, I'm going to add $750 for the Continental Extreme Sport Contact 2 tires because they're pretty much a new condition. They're excellent tires and mounted and balanced. They're around $1,450. Additionally, I'm going to go ahead and add another $750 for the rims on the C6 because I absolutely love them, and the vast majority of C6s that I've looked at don't have them. I'm also going to go ahead and add $250 for that shifter because it's awesome, it's already installed, and it is perfectly adjusted. I'll toss on $300 more for that modern upgraded touchscreen radio because that's a nice upgrade that most people would want, and that brings our adjusted Kelley Blue Book Edmunds ballpark price up to $21,800. So what's the next step? Well, this is the fun part where we actually get to start searching for C6s for sale. And this is also the tricky part because keep in mind, C6s like a 2006 was produced in ultra low numbers of about 30,000 units per year compared to something like a Honda Civic, where they made around 300,000 units per year back in 2006. So in order to get enough samples of C6 Corvettes, we have to cast our net pretty wide. We also have to make sure when we cast our net that we take our results and break them into different groups of the different variants of C6s that exist. For example, on the high end is the ZR1, the C6 Z06, the Grand Sport, the 08 through 13 LS3, LS2, that's 2006 and 7, and way over here is the 2005 1-year only clunky automatic transmission C6 Corvette. And once you do have the C6 variants that pulled up in your search broken into groups, you can start to toss out the high and the low price outliers, and only then can you start to see within each group the average asking price emerge. So for me to get started, I want to cast my net on cars.com, and I'm going to go ahead and search for 2006 through 2013 C6 Corvettes with manual transmissions priced at $30,000 or less, because I really don't want to spend more than $25,000. That should give me all kinds of results to see what variant of C6 I can expect to find for the low $20,000 range. And I do like to set it a little bit higher up at that $30,000 just in case a couple of nice cars like a C6 Z06 show up. In that case, maybe I'd bump my budget up just a little bit. So nationwide, we came up with 74 matches, manual transmission, 2006 through 2013, 30 grand and less. So let's take a peek at this one here. From the pictures, it looks to be fairly decent. But here's something here right out of the gate to look out for, and I see this fairly often. That is an automatic transmission. So decent or not, it's out of the running. This one looks to be in decent shape. Manual transmission car. Not sure I'd travel 1,300 miles to take a look at it, but nonetheless, here's a data point of about 20 grand they're asking for this one. I always think that they'll take, somewhere around 93, 94% of the asking price. You just never know, but that's a good general rule of thumb. Not interested in a convertible. Here's another one, 2006, 92,000 miles. Let's take a look at this one. Not a big fan of those wheels. Too difficult to clean for sure with all the nooks and crannies. No interior shot. Again, here's another data point though. I'm not sure I'd go 1,000 miles, but 2006 for just under 22 grand and just under 100,000 miles. Let's take a look at this one. 2007, 22 grand, 105,000 miles. Let's take a peek. I'm thinking these are pretty hazy. Could just be a bad picture. You can always email sellers and ask for better pictures emailed to you. Not a big fan of those wheels. Definitely a manual. So nonetheless, another data point, right around 22 grand. Here's a 2006, slightly hazy headlights. It's got the standard rims. Paint looks good. Another Corsa exhaust. I believe that says Corsa. Paint looks really good. Manual transmission confirmed. Again, not a bad car. Once again, I don't know that I'd go 1,000 miles for it. Yellow's not my thing, no offense, guys. Nice black car. LS3 motor, which is a plus. A little bit higher on the miles. Let's take a look at this one though. See about the general shape if we can tell. Ooh, aftermarket headlights. I'm not sure if they're the Morimotos or there's another brand that's a little cheaper, I think. Black rims on black car. Looks to be decent, but once again, you gotta keep an eye on this. It's wrong. This is a automatic transmission car. I see that a lot, like maybe 10% of the time. So this one's out of the picture as far as I'm concerned. Burnt orange, sometimes I like it, sometimes I don't. 2007, 100,000 miles, 24 grand. Let's take a peek. Standard wheels. Paint looks good. Confirmed manual transmission. Yeah, this one would be worth checking out, I think. And from my area, this is only 145 miles away. So if I was in the market today, I'd probably take a peek at this one. Another convertible. Yellow's not my thing. Convertible. What do we got here? 2006, 100,000 miles, 25 grand. Painted wheels. I don't really care for those too much. Red interior for me is out. Some people like it, some people don't. Confirm manual transmission, but I can't deal personally with the red interior, so I'm out. Here we go. 2007 LS2 car, 60,000 miles, 27 grand. Gives you an idea, you know, of how much extra people are asking if they're under 100 grand by a fair amount. Let's take a look at this one though. I do have kind of a soft spot for white. Ooh, they got kind of the funky 360 view thing going on. I'm not sure I like that though. Let's go with the photos. That's more my thing. That looks to be a nice shape. And those headlights look like they're in great shape. And the stock one's in great shape to me. They look just fine. The white I think looks good. The red cars I don't like when this is red. Again, that's just subjective though. It's got the chrome wheels, that's alright. And once again, confirmed manual transmission. So not a bad deal for a lower mile, decent condition 2007. Also note, a lot of time when you actually get a regular dealership, like this one's Nissan or GM or Ford or whatever, they do tend to keep the cream puffs and they auction away the junk. So generally speaking, dealerships are going to be a little higher priced, but more often than not, you're going to get a higher quality vehicle. So something to keep in mind. So what do we need to do to get into the LS3? So here's a 2011, 85,000 miles. Clearly an LS3 car. I don't like the wheels at all. I'm not a fan of the convertibles, so that's out for me. What else can we find for an LS3 car? Convertible, 2008 LS3 car, 29 grand. 2012 LS3 car, 29 grand, 50,000 miles. Let's take a look at this one. Headlights look decent. This one's got, I think, kind of the base, cheaper radio. And the newer ones came with some of the controls here on the steering wheel. Nice low miles. See if we got an engine shot here. Nope. Not a bad price. So the LS3 cars are definitely in the upper 20s for sure. And again, that's got lower miles. So let's see if we can find one more LS3 car. 2008. Headlights look decent. Those rims are kind of cool. It's got the kind of two-tone-ish tan black interior if you like that. I think it's okay. I dig the seats. Confirmed manual transmissions. So once again, lower mile LS3 car, just under 30 grand. So that kind of gives you a flavor. You can do this yourself with a notebook and a pen, sort everything out into buckets, and you can quickly figure out in your mind what the different variants of C6s are worth. Guys, hopefully you found the C6 market data exercise useful. I absolutely do spend a ton of time on this because the more data you have, the more analysis you give it, leads to better conclusions and more confident buying decisions. And so in my case, guys, after analyzing all of the C6 data I could get my hands on back in June, it did validate the number we got from our Kelley Blue Book Edmunds exercise earlier in the video. And so after all of that work, how much did I pay for the C6 Corvette? $18,000 even. So guys, let me know in the comments below if you think I got a fair deal or if you think my analysis was flawed. That's it for this one, guys. Be sure to hit the thumbs up if you got value out of this video, but most importantly, thanks for watching.